Up next on Real Texas, we'll go to the president of Texas Farmers Union. Wes Sims is with us. Wes, we appreciate you taking time with us on today's show. Wes, with Texas Farmers Union, what is one of the major things that you stand for?
Our organization was actually formed in Texas 110 years ago by independent farmers. And in our preamble, it states that we will not tolerate discrimination against any people, anywhere. And I'm very proud of that. I've always been of that mind. And in Texas, we're a very diversified people, and we're great people. And in agriculture, we're also diversified people. But we have common interests, common goals, and we work very well together. And I always encourage anyone, become a farmers union. You'll be proud of that part of that new family, because they're good people with the same interest that you have.
Wes, what is the stance that Texas Farmers Union has on the current issues with the Farm Bill?
I've spent quite a bit of time working on, as they built this new Farm Bill. I've tried to stay up to date and current with the changes that are coming. First of all, I represent the members of Texas Farmers Union, and they do develop the policy. I normally do not even sit in on policy drafting, only when they come to me because they have a question or a reason that they ask me to come. Otherwise than that, I stay uninvolved in the development of the policy. My people are very capable of knowing what their needs are and what they'd like to see in terms of foreign policy. I've spent a good deal of time in D.C. as they were formulating this Farm Bill, and then I just returned a couple of weeks ago. I stayed till the end of the session. Was not surprised that they've not come to an agreement on the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill has 12 titles. The commodity title is the most important part of the Farm Bill to the producer. Then all of the titles other than nutrition or directly have some effect on agriculture, and all of them have effect on our rural communities. I did not believe that they would have a Farm Bill enacted by the end of this current Farm Bill, because I thought it was going to be too controversial. The bigger part of the Farm Bill is, the biggest title in the Farm Bill is nutrition, which has no effect on the agriculture sector as far as the income off of their production. It's a very important title because it does affect poor people and sick people and lots of people that it affects. So therefore, the nutrition title does have some effect. It has a lot of effect on rural communities, but it has no effect whatsoever on my opinion, on the agriculture income. There still is the biggest debate is over that title. I believe Congress has already got their mind made up on the other 11 titles, which they're all minor compared to the nutrition. It's 76% of the total dollars spent in the Farm Bill is the nutrition title. The next largest title will be the monies that are paid as subsidies to the insurance companies. And of course, one of the most important parts of the title to the producer is the title that addresses the environment and those programs such as the CRP program and the others. But I have not been favorable towards the direction that they have taken on this new Farm Bill. It is the end of federal farm programs as we have known them now for 79 years. It now will become an insurance farm bill. There are reasons that I'm very skeptical that it is going to work on the benefit of not just the agricultural producer, but you have to consider the landowner, which most farmers farm several farm numbers this day and time. The input cost, such as tractors and all the other equipment it takes to operate a farm, are so expensive that they can and they must farm a much larger operation than, say, it was in most younger years, when 30, 40 years ago. So those things have changed. I don't see, as the insurance costs escalate, I don't see additional assistance. I don't see that, and that worries me greatly. My greatest concern is for what we call southern crops, which is cotton, rice, and peanuts. Because their price is, certainly recent history has been, most of the time has been low. Therefore, those crops, especially cotton, has received a larger percent of their income from government assistance. I see cotton as being the biggest loser because in the commodity title there will be approximately a $21 billion cut against the baseline. The baseline is CBO. They formulate the baseline on the coming 10 years. There'll definitely be a reduction in the conservation title. It's going to be not as large. There'll be about a 33% cut in the commodity title, and that's the one that concerns me the most. Normally, the House and the Senate, once they go to Congress, they will usually come out with a split in the difference between the two, whatever the difference might be. It's usually around divided about in the middle. So that gives you an ability to have a pretty good guess of what is probably going to come out. The reason that I say that our farmers that produce the southern crops will be the largest loser, they will absorb the biggest part of the cuts simply because of their prices have historically been lower than the other crops. But I see changes already moving towards, I believe there'll be some of those crops will reduce in price also, and then they will find themselves in a tougher position because right now the current price and in the recent last couple of years in particular, they've had very good prices and haven't been near as dependent on assistance as the southern crops have been. And I've been very disappointed that our congressional people that hold the districts that are predominantly rural and agriculture, I thought they would have taken a stronger stand for the southern crops across the South, Texas included, than they have, so I'm disappointed there. And I guess the one that I'm most concerned about is they took away the direct payments, which we've had since, actually since 1998. And the farmers have been, and the landlords have become very dependent upon that money for their rents and their leases, and the farmer has become very dependent on it to get his loans from the banks because it's been the first collateral for the banks, and that's going to be gone. At least a part of that money will be moved over to the payments to the insurance companies. Now, the commodities as a whole are going to still have to add to that insurance payment, at least against the baseline, will be approximately $97 billion, and then the farmer will pay about $30 billion additional. And then I believe as insurance rates move upward, he will have to absorb the increases. As I've said before, and I want to restate it, I don't like the direction the Farm Bill's going. I think production agriculture, I see nothing in it for dairy except more foreclosures and bankruptcy in the dairy business. I understand the dairy title. I was a dairyman. Actually, from the time I was a small child, I was milking cows, but as a dairy producer and in the business, I had production dairy for more than 35 years. And I served, starting as a young man, as elected into at one time, the nation's largest co-op as a director. So I've always was very active in the dairy industry. I see more hardship for the dairy, elimination of all their programs, and the program that's left in place is very simple and it's very inadequate. The other southern crops that I aforementioned, I'm greatly concerned about the effect of this Farm Bill on the southern crops. I think they will bear the biggest part of the cuts simply because they've had to have more assistance because of the low prices. Most of my lifetime history, those commodities have had pretty low prices. And going back to the elephant in the room, and being, I believe, the payment limits, what we've had has been multiple entities, partnerships, where it created more entities. So the floor under the thing was $250,000, and that was in case of a disaster, low prices, or whatever Mother Nature throws at us. And $250,000 is not a very big outlay for a modern farm. It's actually, most farmers are in 7 figures, many that they have to borrow that much money to pay for all the inputs to make their crops. And the House cuts it in half, plus it goes to just 2 entities, and that'd be a husband and a wife, and it'll all be tied to the Social Security number. The Senate is much lower, it's at $50,000. And that, like I mentioned, most farmers farm several farms, and they're usually, in most cases, they're widows that own the land, and they're very dependent on those rents and cash leases. So therefore, they're very dependent on been very dependent on the direct payments, and now they're going to be very dependent on the farmer. You have to have insurance, in most cases, one farm number. If a farmer's farming 10 farms, or 10 different farm numbers, in many cases, one farm will reach, if he has a disaster, which it comes to all farmers in different farms. And what in Texas, our biggest disaster overall, year in, year out, is drought in some area of the state. But there are other factors that are disasters, weather related. Then price becomes a disaster when it gets below the cost of production. So I believe that these payment limits that's formulated right now in the Senate bill and what I believe is going to pass the House bill. Now I'm hoping that we come out with the House measure on payment limits. It's quite a bit larger than the Senate. If they meet in the middle like they normally do, well, it's going to be a real disaster for most farmers when they have a disaster of price or weather related. So it's something that has concerned me the most, is what that's going to do to the ability of the farmer to meet his obligations when he makes his crop, or especially when he doesn't make a very good crop. Agriculture is a different industry than any other. Number one, it's a food industry, and government's always going to, and all governments always have and always will be a major player in their foreign policy, because the fastest way for change of government is if people become hungry. So the nutrition title is very important to all of us, because there's certainly nothing in the the Farm Bill that would change the economic position of those people, which are primarily the greatest part of the numbers is children and elderly. And there's not a whole lot that either one of those groups can do to affect their life standards. They can't. They're the weakest in our society, and that's what the biggest argument about the Farm Bill today is. I would prefer a different type of Farm Bill than what we're going to get, and I have worked diligently to bring about a better Farm Bill. It's just some farm groups are going to make a lot of money off this insurance program. They sell it. They're going to draw commissions. I think without that, we'd probably have more support in trying to bring about a better Farm Bill for our farmers. And I know that's a pretty negative thought, but that's what I truly believe. And I'm not happy about it. As for me, the people that the boards, the men and the women that serve on the boards of Farmers Union, their interest is how the Farm Bill affects their income and their rural life. Because standard of living is very important to all of us, every citizen, and no less important to my farm families and any other families.
Wes is the president of Texas Farmers Union, and he will be a guest on our show periodically to give us updates with what's going on in their world. Of course, Wes also travels to Washington all the time to work with the different senators and congressmen and the powers that be. One of the major things right now, of course, is the Farm Bill.